Welcome to the episode 14 of Scott Allen CreatiVLOG. I'm Jason Brewer. This is Jeff Terpstra. Two hosts, one show, and thank you for joining us right now. We are continuing the conversation on research. We've looked at research within. We've looked at aspects of outside research. We're continuing that conversation on the outside research, specifically looking at the experts. Why should we look at experts in our research?
Well, we want to be aware of the greater conversation in our society and also what experts are saying about what our mission is all about, the heart of our mission. An example I have is when we were working with the literacy centers a few years ago, and we read an article from a psychologist that talked about if someone is illiterate, they become isolated. And I didn't really think about that. We had interviewed with a client and they were talking about all the things that someone who's struggling with literacy, what they can't do. They go to a medical office, they can't fill out the form. They're told by their boss at work, in production that they have to, here's a change of policy or here's how you run a machine. They don't know how to read the material. We understood some of those outside situations, but I hadn't really thought in depth about what does that feel like as a human being? And the psychologist was saying that it really brings isolation, and isolation can bring depression. And I thought, for any of us to ever be alone in life, in any season of our life, is kind of like one of the worst experiences we can have in our human experience, in our humanity. To be isolated is horrible. Realizing how powerful that concept was, that came from looking at what experts were saying about literacy.
Because you found out that it wasn't just the aspect of not being able to read. They're afraid of being asked questions and having to interact and then be found out.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So there is that psychology, and there's more than just the tactical aspect of reading. It's what it makes somebody feel because they can't read, how they separate themselves from other people because they just don't want to be found out, their level of illiteracy.
That's right.
We want to speak more into that.
The brand statement for the Literacy Center that we wrote is more than words. It's that greater understanding, and that we wouldn't have captured at that moment if we had not done that outside research.
So who would you consider experts?
Well, there is that aspect of experts. So we'll look up white papers or articles. It could be magazine articles, could be TED Talks, people who are experts in that field. So that can come from all different sources. But then the other aspect of outside research is, what does society feel? What is their opinion about illiteracy or homelessness, for example? And that is super important too. We need to know, are there any misperceptions, perceptions, or attitudes about our mission that society has about us? And the example from that is when we were studying for Family Promise, who help homeless families, we discovered through an MLive article that there was over 30 comments of people who are really angry with homeless people. The only homeless people they had ever seen or met, they felt was the person with a cardboard sign, most often in some type of addiction, and they just felt, well, why can't they just grab themselves by the bootstraps and get out of homelessness? And they were almost angry about that population. We would not have learned that insight if we had not looked outside and just looked online. What is the conversation that is happening? And because of that, we discovered that, a misperception or perception or attitude is my reality. If that's how I see the world, it might not be the right reality, but it's my reality. And so if I have a negative perception of homelessness, it's like an emotional wall or a castle. So you may try to just bang the doors down, but that's not really what we want to do as a nonprofit. We want people to invite us in to our story, to open up the gates, so to speak, of our castle to let us in. So we felt for Family Promise the best way we could do that, to overcome that misperception, was to tell their story through the journey of the child. So the opening frame of the video is the child walking down the sidewalk, and he takes a turn at his front porch, and he sees his mom put his toys and garbage bags full of their belongings on the front porch, and he realizes that moment his life is going to change. But because we're entering that journey through his eyes, you've just invited me into the journey.
It's beautiful. And an aspect of research and asking experts or searching for experts and learning from experts is it takes that moment of I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to try to understand maybe an aspect of the culture or just the perceptions that are out there.
Yeah.
And be willing to adjust our mindset and our reality or perceptions, because you ask an expert and they have years of experience, they've studied it, they have degrees, they have all these accolades to being an expert. They might know a thing or two. And so if we come with humility and just say, I just want to understand how much you learn, to then be able to just use that in your own story, the nonprofit story, or sharing with others the cause that you have that you're passionate about. And so that's really the heart of what we do is getting to that passion and hopes that it will inspire others through the marketing and through beautiful storytelling, and so that it inspires others to gravitate towards your cause or your heartbeat, what your nonprofit's mission is. Well, thank you for joining us today. I hope you learned something. I did. Thanks for joining us.